Peace and blessings. I hope everybody is well. I hope that everybody is striving each day to be one with the eternal mind of the Father, and that everybody is just being able to maintain through this crazy world right now. Today, I want to talk about something a little bit different. What I want to talk about is a guy named Brigham Young. Now, you might say, why do I want to talk about this guy? Well, this will have to do with the occult, and it will have to do with Freemasonry. And I'm also going to briefly mention some ancient Kemetic science. And the reason I want to talk about this, and the reason I know about this, is because I am actually a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Although I am not an active member, I have been a member for probably 30 years or so, give or take. I've served in many capacities. I've been the Sunday school teacher, the elders quorum president, the young men's teacher, the clerk, and I was branch president for 5 years. And that was when I decided I need to expand my horizons and venture out into the world of knowledge of self. And that's when I became a Freemason. So it's not so much about the church that I want to talk about, but basically what I want to do is I want to vindicate Brother Young as a Mason. He was a fellow Mason, and the reason that I say I want to vindicate him is because he came out with a revelation. He was the second apostle and prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as the Mormon Church. They changed their name, in my opinion, to fit in more with the commercial Christian churches so that they would be more accepted and be able to get more members. And I'm not saying that's bad or anything. It's just it's a tactic, that they wanted to go for. And so, go for it. Anyways, so he had a revelation. Like I said, he was the second apostle after Joseph Smith, and he had a revelation, and this revelation was basically this, that Adam was the father of all of us and the only God whom we have to do with. And so a lot of the members misunderstood this because they always thought, God is the God, and Jesus is the only one we have to be concerned with, because through Jesus is salvation, right? And so when Brigham Young came out with this statement, which is known as the Adam God theory, if you want to look up the full context, it really threw the members off because they didn't know what to think of it, because they are not privy or enlightened to occult language. They're not really educated on the history of religion, and not just the Christian religion, but religion in general, or, how it began and how it developed over the years and how it would grow and change as it would be, one empire would take over another empire, and they would take their religion and oftentimes integrate that religion. They would get rid of what they disagreed with, but they would also intertwine what they liked about those religions. And as the world began to expand, civilizations began to expand, all of these religions, they just piggyback off of each other, all of these concepts. But the general message, and it always remains the same, if you can find it. So basically, this revelation that Adam was our father and the only God whom we have anything to do with, it basically got Brigham Young thrown under the bus by the church. The prophet that came after Brigham Young disagreed with that. He said, the only God we have to answer to is the Father of Jesus, right? And Jesus is our Savior, and he's the only one that we have to do with. So they really rejected Brigham Young's idea. But I want to explain what Brigham Young meant by that. If Brigham Young was, somewhat educated as a Freemason, he would have been a little more privy to information that the Christian members of the church did not have or realize or understand. And part of the reason that the members of the church don't know about all of the occultic, um, Freemason history, Egyptian history, the reason that they don't know about this stuff is because they are um, basically discouraged from researching outside of their own church material. And so they would never know about any of this deeper stuff if they just stay in the confines of their own church material. It's just not something that's provided. It's pretty much straightforward Christian language. And there's just no way they could have understood what Brigham Young was talking about when he said Adam is our father and our God, unless they would have had some knowledge of the occult, the esoteric understanding, perhaps some Freemasonry, some ancient history of religion. So basically, what it comes down to is the symbols of change, as I mentioned, as religions develop. Brigham Young knows this. He knew this. So he's able to put the pieces together, and he's trying to bring the people to light. He's trying to bring the members of the church to light. And so when he comes out with this, they don't understand it. But I want to break it down for you here. I want to tie in some of the occult, esoteric language and the Freemasonry concepts, some Pythagorean sacred geometry, and just explain what is meant by this with Adam. What is this whole Adam deal? It's basically this. Adam is a symbol. Adam and Eve is a symbol. That's all it is. It's a symbol that is just like the Pythagorean sacred geometry. You know, you have the Vesica Pisces. Now, the Vesica Pisces is basically made from two circles. It's sacred geometry. And basically what you do is you start out with a circle with a dot in the center of the circle, which means one. Okay? This is God. This is the unknowable. This is where everything comes from. Okay? And this second circle with the dot in the center is number 2. Okay? It's where contrast comes from. It's where if you have nothing, all of a sudden you have something, and you have self-realization here. You have unknowable spirit here, and here you have that which is knowable, right? So in the laws of cause and effect, for example, when you have these two, you know, the cause is known through the effect. Okay? Without the effect, it's hard to know the cause. Okay? So basically, that's your representation of Adam and Eve. Okay? Because Adam and Eve is the story of a male who contains a female aspect. The female aspect is separated from the male. Okay? It's the same thing as the Vesica Pisces. Okay? It's the same thing. Eve was separated from Adam's side, and this is just a way of saying that the male and the female comes into existence. Okay? The first man and the first woman, the beginning, comes into existence. It's much like when a child is in the womb of the mother and the child are one. Okay? And then the son or the child comes from the mother, and once the child comes from the mother, well, then you have ego comes into the world, and you have a separateness from the oneness. You have a separate entity, right? So it's basically the same concept. And so basically, through Adam and Eve, if you look at the Vesica Pisces, you'll see within the center of these two circles is what sort of looks like a vagina. And this is very intentional because life comes from the vagina, right? It comes outward. It's born, right? It's born again. And so this is that middle path that is talked about. Even with Adam and Eve, the middle path isn't really discussed, but it's there because there's two opposites. These are male and female, night and day, hot and cold, right? And so basically, we're being introduced here through the story of Adam and Eve to the story of the opposites of creation, the opposites that it takes to manifest creation. So if you look at the two circles, the center one provides a means for reconciliation. Reconciliation, okay? It provides a means for reconnecting, coming back to the oneness, and uh, entering the middle path. If also in Freemasonry, if you'll notice, there's always the two pillars, right? The pillar of Yakin and the pillar of Boaz. So you walk through those middle pillars, right? That's a symbol of being born again, going through the middle. Um, and as the Vesica Pisces has the vagina shape, you're being born again through the middle path. Okay, now that's just some sacred geometry there, showing how Brigham Young's understanding of Adam and Eve would differ from mainstream Christians. So he knew this, he was privy to this as a Freemason. And now what we talk about is some ancient Kemet science. Now, a lot of people think that the ancient Kemets or Egyptians, they worshipped gods. They didn't worship gods. For example, they were accused of worshiping the sun. They did not worship the sun. They realized that the sun was a symbol of the light, right? The life-giving light. They realized the sun was just a symbol. Now, I'll try to explain that a little bit better. Basically, for example, if you look at Osiris and Isis and Horus, right? You have that story. These were symbols. Okay, these characters are symbols of nature. That's all. They aren't gods to be worshipped, but they are an explanation. They are basically nature being explained through story. Okay, it's allegory, and it's the same thing with biblical scriptures. As we know, the Bible is not a history book; it's a spiritual book, right? So, anyways, the story of Isis, for example. Sorry, not Isis, Osiris. Osiris was killed by his brother, right, Seth, and he was chopped up into many pieces. Now, you think, what could that mean? Well, to be divided into many pieces, if you think about death and deterioration of the body, you know, it breaks up into little microorganisms, right? It disperses, okay? Now, once Osiris was cut up into little pieces, his wife, Isis, tried to put him back together. So she got him all back together except for one part, and that was his penis, his phallus. Okay, she could not find that part, and this all plays into the story. It's intentional. She could not find that. So what she done was she made a golden phallus. She made it out of gold. Now, as we look around in nature today, we can find that golden phallus of Osiris, and it's up in the sky. It's called the sun, the living sun. Okay, the resurrected sun, the erect sun. Okay, if you look up, you can see it. And if you want to understand the concept and idea of a virgin birth, like how is that possible? It's not possible, right? No, not literally. But if you want to understand how it's figuratively possible, well, just observe the sun and watch how it impregnates the earth without touching the earth. The sun impregnates Mother Earth without touching Mother Earth. Okay, and it impregnates the moon. It gives the moon its light. It impregnates everything. Without touching it, it gives it nourishment to the food and to the animals and to the everything. I mean, there's basically nothing that the sun does not touch in some way or another. So, okay, you have the virgin birth. The basic, what I'm trying to say is it's all allegorical. It is all symbolism. So we're getting back to Brigham Young saying that Adam is our father and that he is the only God whom we have to do with. But let's talk about another Egyptian persona that will sort of tie this in. And I'll just close this. It is a principle of nature, and its name is Atum. Okay, now a lot of people will say that Adam came from Atum. Okay, the whole concept of Adam evolved from Atum. Okay, the names are kind of similar as well. I mean, once things go through the Greeks, it changes. You go from all the Egyptian names, they've been changed. So basically, what I want to explain here is that the whole Adam and Eve symbol is just a representation. It's a representation of the duality of existence and the means by which everything is created. Now, this principle of nature that is called Atum is simply duality. It's male and female. Now, if you look at this picture of a tomb here, you'll see that it has a tail. Now, it has a man's body, but when it has a tail on it in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, that means that it has a feminine nature to it as well. So it has both, okay? Now, I encourage you to go look Atum up because you can find a lot more information out about it. So Atum is basically the story of Adam and Eve. And Atum is basically that concept. It's like you can't really grasp it. It's nothing that is concrete. It's not really a fixed ideal. What it is the elements of existence. So anytime that something comes into existence, that is Atum, okay? It's the male and the female. Everything that is needed and required to bring something into existence. And it's basically just it's almost like the blazing star in Freemasonry. A lot of times you'll see it on the checkerboard picture, and the stars in the center. That's the blazing star. That is basically that is God manifesting himself, okay, at any given moment, any given time, continuously throughout eternity. Just a constant flickering, flashing it's so fast and it's so powerful and luminous that we, with our senses, we can't even detect it or notice it. But it's just a continuous flash. It's the blazing star that brings forth existence, okay? And it's within the realm of duality. As you see, the black and white checkers represents duality. So you need all of this duality in order for something to come into existence, because you cannot know, as we stated before, you get back to the one, the original circle. One, there's no contrast. There's nothing there, okay? Now, in order for for that to be known, there has to be something else, okay? So, like, for example, if only the only color that we seen was white, well, then we wouldn't know that there were other colors. We have to have at least another color in order to know that white exists. We wouldn't even know that white exists because there's no colors to compare it to. So it's the same thing with God. In order to know that God exists, there has to be creation, right? If so, you have to know the effect to be able to know the cause. Now, that's basically it. I wanted to basically explain that Brigham Young was not crazy as a fellow Mason. As you can see here, he wears his pendant proudly in this picture. So this is not to bash the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is simply to, validate Brother Young's theory as a Mason. And he was trying to bring the members to light and true understanding, but they rejected it, and so be it.